What would you do? Primip with accurate dates within a few days who has reassuring non-stress test at 42.1 weeks, as well as reassuring placenta and baby and biophysical profile, but absolutely zero fluid seen. 42.2, redo of biophysical profile, and again, mom has hydrated well, but no fluid seen. Baby's kidneys visualized and normal, and baby's bladder contained normal amount of urine. We're in a state with full autonomy for midwives and no transfer of care regulations past 42 weeks. Absolutely no fluid seen. What do we truly feel are the risks compared to a woman whose water has been broken? And so baby/cord has no cushion there either. Cord compression only, true possibility of placenta being done, although it looks good. Can anyone share stories, opinions? Technology isn't perfect, and I like Gloria LeMay's visualization of a glass tub above you. How much water will you actually see below someone in a bathtub? But my hands feel nothing but baby, who again is doing well and recovers well after sporadic contractions. Mom feels everything is fine and wants to leave things alone.
Afterwards, when people were like, who's the midwife? Who's responsible for this? Because it clearly, this is there, we need to hold responsibility for the midwife. And when Christy was on the post defending herself, but pretending to be another midwife was one thing where Dr. Amy called her out and other people started calling her out and being like, I'm pretty sure you're the midwife. Cause she's like, I know the midwife. I'm friends with the midwife, but she was the midwife, like, which was really crazy for me to look at later, because I was like, she totally denied being my midwife, but she was at the moment when she was like writing this online, she was at the hospital with us. So I was like blown away that I was like, you would even lie to people of how you were trying to cover it up. And so I don't know exactly when a post went out, but around the same time that she put this big long post of her, it was like her feelings. I think it was I think that's how she started. These are my feelings about what happened. She removed, because I was in the home birth community, some of people that were my friends that she knew of, she removed all my friends from her account. And I think she might have even removed me from her account. So she removed anybody that would see this post and it would get back to me. And she goes off saying, this big long, oh, woe is me. Oh, I'm a midwife and I worked so hard and I tried to do everything that I could. And as the worst lines that she says in there is, she did everything she possibly could do other than handcuff us and take us to the hospital. And if she would have done that, then we wouldn't be holding our cold, dead baby. And that's what I remember when I seen that. I was like, it was a couple weeks after we got home from the hospital and stuff. And when I seen the post from Jan was like, what the hell is happening? That was what that was. It took me a while to even wrap my head that there was crowdsourcing happening. But then to see Christy's own words about what happened, and she's literally on the phone convincing me after the hospital that my baby was sick. Cause I'm like, what happened? What happened? I literally was like, what happened to my kid? And she's like, oh, your baby was sick. And your baby was meant to die. And it's kind of like, it's part of the circle of life or something. And to see that message, I was like, I just remember when I first seen it, my parents were like, we have something to show you. I don't know if you're ready for us to show you this, but I feel like you really need to see this because it's about you and it's about your baby. And I feel we can't hold this from you. And my parents took some time, I think, to grieve before they even showed us because they were blown away. And so when I seen her message, my parents had printed it out. I think they got a copy from Dr. Amy or something. And when I read it, I just remember just falling on the floor. I remember just laying on the floor next to these papers, just bawling, and was like, she never told us to go to the hospital. And I was so devastated that I read her words of like, if I would have just handcuffed him, because I just remember repeating over and over, do we need to go to the hospital? Do we need to go to the doctor? Do we need to get checked out? Like, is something wrong? And she just, everything's fine. Everything's fine. So to read that was so devastating to me that I was like, she lied to us the whole time and she knew. And there's where I think of like, there's education and training that I think none of the midwives know and none of the stuff. But then there's also ignorance and there's also like this egotistical side. And my midwife knew better, because if she didn't know better, she wouldn't have wrote that post with she basically admitted her own guilt. She never told us to go to the hospital. And then as time went on, I learned in California, she knew all about going overdue and she knew all about low fluid. She actually did know about it. But the reason of the post, I think why she went to Jan, because Jan was sympathetic to, whatever. She's this, it's like celebrity. Christy also likes to talk about herself and it's all about Christy. So she made a post that's about Christy. It wasn't about us. It was about validation for people to say, yeah, go Christy, have that home birth at home. And it was never about the care and safety of what was happening to me or the baby. Like that was how it was. They're from her. Like there's no way to sugarcoat the stuff that she said of she's just that evil of a person. And unfortunately, as the years have gone by, I've met way too many Christy Collins with just a different name and just a different looking face, or they live in a different place. Like literally, if you talk to all the other lost moms, all the midwives that we hired sound like the same people. Like for real, they're the same person, like over and over and over. And everybody always says the same thing. Like I remember even when I was like newly into this, what was your midwife's name? And what did they look like? Can you send me a picture? Because we knew that they changed their names. And literally being like, oh, okay, yours was a blonde, or, this one's a brunette, because you literally didn't know. You thought you were talking about the same midwife. Like, that's how scary this is.
So one thing that happened afterwards, since it was going viral, is that the whole community of like us and others like us thought, okay, this is the momentum that we need. This is the moment. And then there was the YouTube video that was made by Lisa of Married to Medicine blog. Lisa started it, and then everybody from Fed Up with Natural Childbirth, so many people just set a line. And you were on there, Danielle, and Bambi, I think, and some other lost moms. Because really, like you said, the stories are just so similar. And we thought that this could be it. This could where we could collectively, hey, this is the level of lay attendance that we have, and it's not good enough. It's not good enough, because not only do babies die, well, then they're buried twice. And that video to me is this excellent video. It did everything. I mean, it really did tell the story, but it just everything just petered out because of the lies and the brainwashing. And I guess it's so similar to even now today, people who, delude themselves about vaccinations and COVID. It's the same with parents, deluding themselves that natural is better. It's got to be better. A home birth has to be better. And then some people just buy into it. I said, I know a woman who, she did some illegal, well, she went to a birth center when she shouldn't have, because she was multi-para, and it was not in their license, but she went anyway. When she moved to a rural area, she decided to just free birth. Her last child was undiagnosed, a Down syndrome with a heart defect. That child could have died because she chose to just free birth. And yeah, he was number 9, so it's probably gonna be pretty easy to free birth number 9 if she doesn't, bleed out and and her uterus won't contract. But if that happens, well, yeah, she probably just has, possibly 2 or 3 hours of labor. But luckily, they eventually made it to a pediatrician and realized why he wasn't nursing. And I guess that's how they found out everything. And he's had his surgery and he's thriving now. But I thought, that's how deluded people are. They just don't even realize that can happen. Or they realize it and they just, well, just like people realize, the COVID lottery. They know that it's going to happen, but they just don't think they're not going to pick the piece of paper with the black dot, that they're going to be okay. So their baby's going to be fine and be born into a loving, whatever, birthing tub or at home with siblings, whatever the fantasy is. And I'll tell you what, my fantasy was just in the hospital and as little pain as possible. That was my fantasy. Bringing the baby home.
But you can kind of see, even like what you brought out, Karen, is these lay attendants, even if they are well known, even if they're very famous, they're not going to catch the things that need to be caught. And that's why we get care in the first place from someone who could treat things that will probably never happen to us, but they know how to take care of it. I don't know if you guys remember Joey Feek. She's a country singer. So she was 40 and she passed away. And she was pretty famous for having a home birth with midwives from the farm. And we all know the farm as being the place where that's like the holy grail of home birth and midwifery because of Ina May Gaskin. But this singer was 40 years old. She died of cervical cancer and she had a baby with Down syndrome. So the thing is, it was a surprise to them that they had a child who needed extra care, because that's not something they've been screened for during the pregnancy. But also the cervical cancer part's pretty normal to have a pap test at the beginning of the pregnancy, or even if you do preconception, then you would have it then. But these are things that could have been cared for much better. She probably would be alive now if she would have sought care from even just your average OB, even though she would have been high risk because she was 40. Any OB just has their standard, this is what we do. And it's not saying your body can't do something. It's not saying that there's something wrong with you. It's just part of a screening process so people don't get left behind this way.
I haven't heard of that. I didn't know that. So that's really, really sad, because it is true. And a lot of people opt out and they're like, oh, I want to have a home birth because I don't have to get all the testing and all the checks and I don't have to do all that stuff. But I didn't understand the first time around, but then when I've had another baby afterwards and stuff, I realized all of it is like it's a necessary thing, and they're not doing checks every time they see you. They're not, it's not like that. They're doing what they need to do. And, you're offered genetic testing, you're offered different, like more advanced level testing, but it all actually has a purpose for your kid and for your well-being, because things do happen during pregnancy that can make you high risk, even if you weren't high risk already. So you're exactly right. Like, and that's the thing is, like, when I heard about, what was the actress that, was it Mandy Moore that was going to have a home birth? And then she ended up, not having a home birth because they did her blood test and her platelets were low or something like that. And she was so heartbroken that she ended up having to have a hospital birth instead of a home birth. And I'm not going to lie to you. I asked all of my home birthers and birth center families and was like, did you get that test done? And all of us were like, I didn't even know that was a test. I didn't know that was even a thing. And I was like, so tell me about what the celebrities are getting for home birth, because we didn't get that. I didn't get no blood magical test of anything. Like you barely pee on and they check your stick that you could buy at the store. So, I mean, like, they're not doing any of that.
The hamster wheel of outrage, where people get themselves all fired up about something and just keep on trucking this. Then they find something else to get themselves upset about. And it's like, okay. So yeah, in some of those natural birth circles, one of the things they do is they get outraged about every piece of standard care. So you get screened for venereal sexually transmitted diseases at the beginning of your pregnancy. Everybody does. And people are like, oh, why are they doing that? It's like, So in case you have an infection, you can be treated for it. And then, everything goes on as normal. They're like, what do they think I've been doing? They don't know what you've been doing. They're just checking for an infection so you can be treated if you need it. If you don't have an infection, everything is fine. Life goes on. And it's like, but they just want to be so upset about it. It just drives me nuts.
And they want to take it personally. It's not that personal. It has really, it's just a checklist. It's not a moral judgment about something you have done, or, it's just checks and balances. That's all it is. And I really wish that people could think that they were worth doing all those checks on.
No, I agree, because all the testing I learned second time around it's necessary because it's protection. That's what it is. It's protection it's for your well-being. It's for your baby's well-being. Like it's a whole nother thing. It's not what the natural birth community tells you it is. Like, it's not the cascade of interventions from testing or something like that. Like, you're not going to get a blood test and it's going to put you into, your high risk category or something like that. Like, suddenly they're not drugging you. It's a weird, there's a lot of stuff of like, they really just want you to stay away from the hospitals. So that's what it is. They really convince you, like, blood tests and checks and all the regular stuff is just taking away from you being a woman, having your babies, and like taking away from your body knowing what to do, and taking away from your babies knowing what to do, when it's not anything about that in any way, shape, or form. Especially when you go and there's female OBs and they have had a bunch of babies and they've had vaginal births and they've, like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody's taking away from you when you're seeing somebody else that's on the same level as you, and they just want you to get good care. That's all it is. They just want you to get good care and have a good outcome and everyone be okay and safe and healthy.
My pediatrician said she had one baby every way. She had a vaginal birth, a cesarean section. I think she had reproductive help with her third, and then she adopted her fourth. So she had the full set.
All of them. Yeah.
All of them. It's like, as far as she was concerned, one kid's like the other. It's not a big difference. But yeah, you're right about that. Everything is the narrative is everything a doctor does is trespassing on your autonomy. And I'm like, and then they're like, you should have shared decision making. It's like, you already have shared decision making in your medical care.
Shared decision making. There can't be shared decision making and informed consent if you're not giving full information. And you can't give full information and get informed consent if you don't know what's wrong. That's why there was a lot of stuff on the post about, oh, it's mom's decision. Mom makes the final decision. It's informed consent. Danielle, you never got informed consent because no one ever told you what was going wrong, and no one could because she didn't know herself. I mean, she was asking randos on Facebook what was going on. That's not informed consent, and that's not shared decision making because you were not given complete information. And someone cannot get complete, someone can't give full information if they don't even know what the risks and benefits are for a particular course of treatment. So Christy, she didn't know what was going on with you. She didn't know the risks of continuing the pregnancy. She didn't know the benefits of continuing the pregnancy. And you were given none of this information. There was no shared decision making and there was no informed consent. I mean, it's really as simple as that.
It's true.
The other issue is, a lot of stuff about autonomy and patient autonomy. Of course, patient autonomy is incredibly important and always paramount, but that doesn't mean that you just let a patient do whatever they want either, because they're coming to you for a reason. They're coming to you for your expertise. So this whole idea of mother knows best, trust your instinct, it's silly. That's not what people are coming to a doctor for. And you can take the information or leave it as a patient. But as doctors, we're obligated to give people full information, and you can do it in a nice way or a mean way, but you got to give the information out. There's no excuse to do otherwise.